Welcome to Critical Junction, episode 43. I'm Mark.
I'm Luke.
I'm Jill.
And for millennia, humans have looked to the stars in an attempt to give our lives meaning and understand our place in the cosmos. As far back as the 2nd millennium BCE, the ancient Babylonians, in an attempt to explain how the planet supposedly influenced human behavior, assembled what is perhaps the first organized system of astrology. According to that system, a lunar eclipse, for example, was a sign of bad fortune for the king. In order to thwart whatever bad fortune that may be, subjects were dressed up and paraded as the king, and then put to death if the eclipse itself did not kill them first. Today's modern astrology, which consists mostly of bite-sized snippets of fortune-telling that can be found in virtually every newspaper and online, isn't nearly as barbaric, though its underlying principles are still nothing but superstitious. There is absolutely zero evidence to demonstrate how planets within our solar system, planets that are millions of kilometers from Earth, or even the constellations in the night sky, have any impact whatsoever on human behavior, characteristics, or personality. In fact, longitudinal study beginning in 1958 and spanning several decades tracked more than 2,000 people, the majority of whom were born within minutes of each other in early March, and, according to astrology, should therefore have similar personality traits to one another. Researchers examined a plethora of characteristics ranging from occupation, IQ, math skills, reading comprehension, and sociability, all of which are supposedly influenced by the position of the stars and planets at the moment of our birth. What the researchers found, however, was a complete lack of evidence of any similarities between test subjects, casting serious doubt upon the claims made by astrologers and those who believe them. Which brings us to newspaper horoscopes. While they may seem superficially innocuous, one might argue they do pose a real danger when it comes to people taking them seriously enough to live their lives according to what these horoscopes tell them, despite the fact they consist of nothing but Barnum statements that are vague enough to apply to anyone, yet remain seemingly accurate for the reader. So, why do people continue to believe in astrology despite it having been debunked as nothing but pseudoscience? Is astrology harmless, or is there a danger associated with believing in this particular brand of superstition? Let's talk about that, shall we?
I've never actually met anyone that actually believes in astrology. I don't know.
Are you sure? Really?
Well, I don't think so. Anyone that comes close, and I do have friends that believe go see psychics and stuff like that. But when
they don't believe in astrology.
Well, when they're reading it, I think they still seem to be taking it as entertainment, which is how it's classified, right?
Right.
Like the small print is there. It always says entertainment.
And it's in the comics section. It's not
Right.
like in like the business news or whatever.
It's puzzles, astrology, and comics. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you know anyone that takes it seriously?
That takes it really seriously? I suppose not. I kind of assumed that the people that we do know that
shall remain nameless.
But that have at least some affinity for these kind of supernatural things like psychic readings and things like that. I thought they would have also been into astrology, or I just assumed.
I also didn't.
But I guess I don't really know anyone directly that.
I didn't know that astrology was. You had said something that the position of the stars influences behavior, which is something I didn't actually even consider. I always just thought they were meant to be mirror images of each other, sort of thing. It's not influencing but representing.
Right. The basic idea is that depending on where the sun is or where the Earth is in relation to the constellations and the planets and stuff, when you're born, influences your entire life.
Yeah.
So
it's not the constellation. The constellations are only basically a marker for the section of the sky. They're just a marker for a section of the sky, and then it's whether or not certain planets are in transit or whatever in that particular section of the sky. Then that will have an indication of whether or not you have some type of personality profile or something.
Yeah, which I find funny because the position depending on which section of the sky that you're supposedly born in, that changed due to the Earth's precession, right? 2,000 years ago, people born in Leo are now supposed to be born in Capricorn just because of the way that the Earth rotates. Right?
Well, I'm also thinking, I mean, the whole universe is like swirling dust kind of thing, going into all sorts of crazy patterns and constantly changing. So yeah, the sky, even hundreds of years ago, wouldn't have looked the same.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
If they haven't adjusted the profiles for the like star signs or whatever of people as they're born, right? So let's say Libra had a specific profile 1,000 years ago, then unless they've actually made it so that now with the changes in the sky or whatever, they've actually moved that profile over one,
Which they didn't.
Then you know that it's bullshit. So
Well, that aspect is bullshit. Yeah.
Well, that aspect is
the
what
whole
everything
concept.
is contingent upon.
Yeah. The whole concept is that the configuration of the planets in the sky, they beam some energy onto you at the moment of birth.
What I find interesting is
being.
why is the moment of birth more important than the moment of conception?
Yeah.
And if it's the moment of birth that matters when it comes to being influenced by the stars and whatever, like, will some kind of like meat shield prevent that
Well, so
influence?
that's the thing
Ooh,
that
meat
puzzles
shields.
me. Like, why is it that why is it important that that once they're on the other side of that centimeter thick of skin,
Right.
then all of a sudden the planets are able to influence that being?
That's what I mean. Like, as soon as they're born, if you
But
wrap them in,
if you keep that baby behind that 1 centimeter thick of skin,
yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, as soon as they're born, if you wrap them in steak or whatever, are they going to be immune to the influence of the planets?
I never took it to mean that the stars were influencing this and that.
No?
I always just took it to mean that it was representative of. Like, I'm thinking of, like, birth of Christ, we're seeing the comet in the sky, and it's all of a sudden a bright star, and that was representative of the birth of this being that was to lead to enlightenment kind of thing. So it wasn't as if the star made that happen. It's that they simultaneously occurred at the same
Right.
They
But
simultaneously occurred at the same
according
time.
to
What am I
most
saying?
astrological beliefs, it is the actual like position of the planets, whatever, and the constellations, and all this at the moment of your birth that determines all your personality characteristics for the rest of your life.
Right.
Which is why this study that I mentioned in the introduction matters, because, like I said, they tracked more or less 2,000 people over decades and tried to compare their personality traits, like I said, and they found zero similarities. You would think that if astrology were real and all these influences were actually legitimate, then you would find some kind of clustering of similar traits among this sample of 2,000 people, but they didn't, right? So there is no argument.
Yeah.
Astrology is just pure pseudoscientific bullshit.
I always took it to be a...
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Excellent. I always took it to be a little bit, it takes some sort of artistic ingenuity to come up with some sort of cohesive pattern to present from like stars or whatever, reading astrology sort of thing. So, not to say that I believe in astrology, but we can also too easily dismiss something when people may be just poor at it. Like, we're looking at a bunch of painters painting and we're going, yeah, but they suck and that doesn't look like anything.
I'm not sure I follow your reasoning on this one.
In the sense that, let's say that the sky does somehow create patterns that can be interpreted in certain ways, and we just don't know how to do it.
Okay.
How would we grow to know to do it? And if it were possible, like let's say it is a real thing, how would we even know that it was a real thing? I mean,
By
it's very,
testing it. That's the key. That's the key element. It's
But what
just
I'm saying
testability. I want to address the first part of your reasoning here. Is, admittedly, there's a lot about the universe that we just don't understand yet, right? But if there were some kind of influencing factor, a la astrology, and we just don't understand it, we'd be able to examine it and test it to see whether or not it's actually valid. It's untestable. It's unfalsifiable. Like there's nothing behind astrology.
Well, yeah, it's pretty abstract.
But is it unfalsifiable? I thought it was completely falsifiable because they're making positive claims about correlations between these like star signs or positions of the planets and stuff and like profiles.
No, you're right.
Of people, it's totally falsifiable,
you're right,
and it
you're
has
right.
been falsified.
You're right. I just have a tendency to lump in unfalsifiable with the other thing. That's
No, but
you're right. You're absolutely.
I came across some other stuff as I was like reading about this, where some people were applying that to astrology, and I think that's wrong. So some actual like skeptics,
right? I misspoke. So
okay.
You're right. You're right.
So I think it's been falsified because let's say it is just a coincidence of like the position of the planets is just a symbol for the type of person that's born at a certain time of year, right?
Right.
Which is kind of what you were
Yeah.
implying,
Like
right?
I'm almost using like some sort of a weird dream logic to go like, okay, this can represent that, and maybe we can draw patterns from it or something like that.
But if there's a strong correlation there, as they claim, then they're also implying some type of causal relationship,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's more than just symbols. It's actually they're implying some kind of ontology there.
Yeah, there is
universe.
a cause and effect aspect to it, which part is testable.
And so if
that's
you can
been
falsify any causal relationship between personality profiles and where planets are in the sky, well then you've just flattened the whole thing.
Every test devised has been able to demonstrate that there is no causal relationship between the position of the stars and planets and how somebody lives their life. There's just no demonstrable evidence to back that up.
Can I compare it to someone painting? Let's say someone is just a shitty painter and paints a painting that is of the forest
So you're saying
that we're looking at, and then we look at it and go, that's not the forest, that does not look like the forest, and it does not represent the forest to me, kind of thing.
Okay,
And-
so
Like,
you
what
mean if an astrologer gives somebody some kind of horoscope or profile,
could they-
and you say that doesn't really fit for me? Is that what you're talking about?
What I'm saying is,
it's just because that astrologer is a bad painter.
right, they're a bad astrologer. So like we can.
So
very
have there
quickly-
ever been any good astrologers?
Well, I don't know. How would we even be able to?
By testing their claims,
Right.
which has been done.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not only that decades-long study I'm talking about, it's other studies that were similar to it. They've all tested these claims of, are they spot on or are they missing? Every test devised has just pointed to the fact that they're wrong. Right? There's no substance to these claims whatsoever, right? Even if they're a bad painter and they occasionally have a good painting, you'd be able to, like most people do, they point to the hits and forget the misses, Most of them are misses. When it comes to horoscopes in particular, everything in there is a Barnum statement, right? It's something that sounds sort of like, hey, yeah, that makes sense, but
Sounds personal, but it's
they're
purely
crafted
general.
in a way that makes them applicable to everybody.
It's
Let's do that experiment
it's
right
like,
now.
It's like a skill of the shyster.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called Barnum statements because P.T. Barnum came up with the whole concept, right? He was a genius at this type of marketing. But let's do the experiment. Let's pull up some horoscopes and we'll read them to each other.
Are you ready, everyone? Are you ready?
Let's read through today's horoscopes and let's just see how well they actually match.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are. What's your sign?
We're Taurus.
Yeah,
both
we're
of
both
us.
born on the exact same day.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's read Taurus first.
Okay.
By the way, that's fate, Jill. That's fate. You and I.
I know.
Same.
It's destiny.
It was written in the stars.
I'd like to see your star charts.
Okay,
Gilles, do you have a
Taurus, you seem to be worried about your money situation at the moment, but what happens today and over the weekend should ease your fears a bit. Yes, you owe more money than you would like, but there's still plenty of time to boost your cash flow.
Who would that not apply to in today's world? You know?
Okay, and now I'm a Libra, so let's hear mine.
Libra, you seem to be more relaxed about everyday matters at the moment, and that's a good sign. Too often in the past, you have allowed yourself to get worked up about issues that, in the greater scheme of things, are really quite trivial. Move beyond them.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, I get worked up about a lot of things. That's one of the reasons why we do this show. So, the big reveal. How did you read those horoscopes, Jill?
Well, Libra, I was actually reading the Sagittarius horoscope.
Oh, no!
It's amazing.
And
you guys tricked me.
Yeah, and for you, Luke, and me, I was actually reading the Cancer horoscope.
See, I think it's funny because the first batch read for you guys, I related to more than mine.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Well, read the Taurus.
It's also funny because I found $10 on the sidewalk.
Okay, so let's see the actual Taurus.
Does it say anything about you're a bullshitter?
No matter how many upheavals there have been on the home front of late, you can put it all right again today. With Venus moving through the domestic area of your chart, you will find it easy enough to build bridges. Try not to burn them again.
Okay. Don't burn your bridges, guys. Don't burn them.
I think I would actually have to be like in contact with other human beings to be burning bridges, which I'm kind of a shut-in. So
You're in contact with us. He's going to do something that's going to piss us off. I can just tell.
Yeah, I can just tell. And Libra, yours is actually, no matter what may be going on in the world outside your door, the most important thing now is what is going on inside your own head. If you have a positive view of life, then positive things are sure to happen. Your mind creates your reality.
For God's sake. Okay, so...
They're all actually very positive.
Well, they're
they're
supposed to be able to apply to a
they're
general
like fortune
population.
cookies.
Yeah, exactly. Help me, I'm trapped in a fortune cookie.
Okay,
factory.
so very different from other shystery type things.
It's
It doesn't
still,
seem...
it's still shystery.
Well, it doesn't seem to be wanting to get anything... it doesn't seem to be influencing any negativity.
So that's the thing. I don't think the sincerity or the benignness is an indication of the validity of it.
Well, no.
But it's also not. I mean, you could say, of course, that the benignness means that it's not too harmful, but I think it.
I would disagree with that.
I think the benignness it's only a superficial short-term benignness, but in the grand scheme of things, it kind of trains us or normalizes us in terms of accepting completely irrational concepts as being real.
Right.
And in that sense, I think it's detrimental.
Absolutely. Let's look at the example of Ronald Reagan, right?
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, he had a personal astrologer to the White House.
Apparently, most big policies had to be vetted by their astrologer.
They had to be vetted, and he also rearranged his schedule depending on what his astrologer told him.
Wow, it's like having your own witch doctor to throw down some bones and tell you how the day's going to go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, if someone can have that much influence over the president, right, to the extent where he rearranges his entire schedule based on what they're saying, it's not as benign as people make it out to be. Sure, it seems like it if you're just reading this bullshit horoscope in a newspaper in the morning or whatever, but if you take it and expand it beyond that tiny little microcosm and apply it to larger situations like this White House thing, no, it's not benign. Mm-hmm. And it's also not benign when it comes to people who pay astrologers to come up with their star charts, because these can range in the hundreds to thousands of dollars. Like if you go to the local psychic fair or whatever, which we at some point will do during a psychics episode at some point.
Gilles will get very upset.
Oh, so will I.
Oh,
but
God,
if you go to these things, there are people who sell your birth chart to you. They'll ask you for as much information as they can and make it seem all legit by putting stuff into a computer and printing out this binder of information based on the position of the stars and all this other stuff, where Mercury was and if Venus was in transit at the time, and they'll sell it to you for an exorbitant amount of money.
Right.
That is not benign. You're taking advantage of people's superstition.
Well, hold on. That is the job. I mean, everyone's got to find a way to live, and whether or not it's advertised as entertainment.
Yeah, but some people don't see it as entertainment. They see it as an actual thing that they need to know, right? In order to be more fulfilled or live up to their potential or whatever, right? That's when it starts to get dangerous. People
and you should see the stuff on YouTube. There are channels like dedicated to astrology, and they go like deep into the mythology and the whole arcane kind of theory of it all, with all of the mechanics and the way they argue for it. Like they're like fiercely defensive about skeptics. They're constantly they're constantly strawmanning and disparaging any skeptic arguments.
Well, it sounds like
I don't know if you saw
revealing their own insecurities in it.
I don't know if you saw that interview that Richard Dawkins did with I can't remember the name of the astrologer.
Yeah.
It was one of his specials. Like I can't remember the name of it, but like you're right. He was extremely defensive.
Is that from like the Enemies of Reason?
That's the one.
Yeah.
So the guy was really defensive. He's like, well, this is legitimate, it's real science, blah, blah, blah. And Dawkins is just like, well, no.
Yeah, he proposed a double-blind study that would have no other effect other than either proving that what the guy does is valid and actually does correlate to reality, or it would disprove it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If it doesn't work. And the guy just flat out says, "Well, I don't believe in that test.
I shouldn't have to do that or something."
Yeah. And his response was his whole position was basically any test that you devise that would objectively prove or disprove it would have to be viewed as mischief because the motives would be suspect as being mischief if the test would potentially disprove his whole enterprise.
Yeah.
Right.
They're traditionally very worried about that kind of thing. They don't want to participate in double-blind studies or anything of that nature because they know or they fear that what they're practicing would be disproved very easily. Like, if astrology were real, you'd be able to test it scientifically in a lab and come up with repeatable results, which is just simply not the case.
Yeah, you would first have to have parameters that are defined.
You can define parameters.
Yeah, I guess I don't know anything about this. I thought it was way more abstract than this.
No, you can totally define parameters.
I had no idea that people tried to work this out into a science.
No, exactly. Yeah, they present it as a science. Yeah.
But what I mean is that. It's okay. So they set it up like a science, but then what they tell us about isn't science. Like it's abstract.
Well, because they're not actually using the scientific method. They're just using some arcane theory that has been constructed over millennia.
There are two things. The constructed over millennia thing, definitely, because it's old and ancient and mysterious. People tend to think it's more legitimate. Oh, yeah. Also, the fact that they make it extremely complex and only a certain percentage of people can put together these star charts or whatever.
Oh, it's like taxes.
Yeah, like they elevate it to this level where they're like, where people are just accepting of it because of A, how complicated it seems, and B, how old it is. Right?
I was the thing that struck me was that basically they've constructed their own Gish Gallop to fool themselves into believing in the validity of this thing.
Well, and they've convinced themselves.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Most of them are completely sincere. Like you can't really, unless you're Jojo Savard or Dionne Warwick, you can't really get rich off of astrology. I mean, these guys that write the articles in the magazines and papers, they don't
get
really
paid pennies or some of them just volunteer it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like.
So it's harder to just dismiss it as like some kind of profit motive, unlike things like faith healers and stuff like that, where they actually do directly charge people for services, and there's basically no regulation of how much they're going to charge for what kind of services, right? There's a much more real kind of vulnerability to being accused of trying to take advantage of someone.
Yeah.
But with astrology, it looks like it's a lot more just a deeply ingrained kind of credulity, and like a cultural artifact. Like that guy in that interview with Richard Dawkins, he himself brought up the concept of memes, right?
Yeah.
And he was trying to make an argument to Richard. He goes, so astrology's so you invented the concept of memes, so you would understand, right, that a meme is an idea that replicates itself and
acts like a virus,
acts like a gene or whatever, and that astrology basically is a meme that has proven itself fit because it has fulfilled those criteria. It is reproduced, it is spread, and it has lasted, right?
Which in no way makes it valid.
Which exactly, in no way does it make it valid, and
well, it sounds like it's lasted because it can fit nicely into the newspaper beside the comics.
That's one of my main problems.
Well, the benignness, right?
Yeah, that, and the fact that, while it may seem benign, the fact that so many people don't question it and just accept it as entertainment or whatever, it normalizes, and you mentioned something along these lines earlier, Gilles, it normalizes the acceptance of superstition, and it propagates that lack of critical thinking among people. They just absorb it, and they just, it's fun. But superficially, yeah, sure, it may seem fun, but there's more to it than that. It's still bullshit, and you're still spreading bullshit.
Yeah. It in and of itself is not dangerous, but in the minds of those that are dangerous or could become dangerous by it, right? Like, well...
So were you gonna argue that?
I wasn't arguing, and I generally don't argue. But, but I was going to suggest.
When I say argue, I don't mean like having a tiff or a fight.
No,
I mean constructing
present an argument.
I don't know if I'm presenting an argument.
Oh, okay.
I never do until it's out there, and then you guys can call it an argument if you like. But I was just going to say. In a sense, there's nothing wrong with a benign thing, and a benign thing isn't necessarily dangerous. But to a person that's not benign, it's what a person does with something. Like I always come back to this idea that it's what we do with things that is dangerous, not the thing in and of itself necessarily.
No, but the thing in and of itself, like if we're going to keep it vague, can have non-benign effects on
cats meowing.
On people. Well, what about something like naivete, right? In some sense, that's benign, right? Because it doesn't involve any ill intent, and often the consequences of naivete are not all that significant. But in the long run, like being willfully ignorant or being naive can actually lead to catastrophic consequences, right? So in that sense, there's something benign there's something benign that has a non-benign consequence.
I would suggest at this time in history, we can't really be talking like this, like because everything is dangerous nowadays. Like our thoughts that we're putting forward are weapons now, So yes, I will be careful and not say, hey, that's a super good time. Astrology.
What?
Astrology is dangerous.
Oh.
It's going to kill your children.
Is that what you think?
No, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that my brain and how I am, I can have a little more fun with things that aren't real, and I can flirt with believing in something, sort of thing, you know?
Can we put that on a shirt? Astrology will kill your children?
Sure. And my child will wear it. Because it's your child dying, not mine.
Yeah. Okay, well, While doing some research for today's topic, I stumbled upon this article that has 10 embarrassing questions for people who believe in astrology. I don't know if you guys want to do one of our classic let's read through the list things.
I'm going to say, believing in anything is dangerous. We can believe in great things and ruin them and make them terrible.
Yeah, even believing in the scientific method, I guess, and using the scientific method can lead to awful things.
Well, hold on. I feel like scientific method is like saying language. It's someone that says I don't believe in science is saying it's like I don't believe in language. Like, what are you talking about? We're going back to that. I don't believe. Did not believe in.
I believe in math, and unfortunately, you can use math to calculate the trajectory of a ballistic missile to kill a village, right?
Yeah, so, science is mapping.
I just killed with math.
It's mapping patterns and shit like that.
I believe in physics, but unfortunately, physics can be used to destroy people or entire continents with an atomic bomb. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Destroy you with physics. Anyway, okay, so do we want to go through these 10 questions, one of our classic read through the list things, and answer them as best we can?
Luke doesn't look too enthusiastic.
All right, I'll take that as a yes. Question number 1. What is the likelihood that 1/12 of the world's population is having the same kind of day? Because if you believe in astrology, then people who are born in the same sign should be having the same personality and therefore having the same type of day going on, right?
Okay, do you want us to react?
Let's react
to each one as we go.
Sure, we can. Do that.
For that one, actually, I'm kind of thinking maybe the varieties of human experience aren't quite so varied, and it might not be that far-fetched that there only are 12 kinds of days, basically.
Well, and you're keeping it vague, right?
Wait a minute. Did somebody come up with there are certain archetypal days kind of thing? Because I think I remember hearing about that at some point.
Okay.
So maybe you're not so wrong on that one. What do you think?
We end up believing in astrology at the end of this list.
At the end of this episode, we're going to be astrology believers. We will have given up the scientific method, and
I'm trading in my skepticism for credulity.
Screw logical necessity. I don't care anymore.
Don't care about reason. Question number 2. I already asked this one, but why is the moment of birth rather than conception crucial for astrology?
Yeah,
so we talked about that already. Did this one too. Question number 3. If the mother's womb can keep out astrological influences until birth, can we do the same with a cubicle of steak? The idea of wrapping a baby up in steak.
A steak cubicle.
I've gone back to the womb and just cover myself in steaks. You guys want to do that later on?
Yeah.
Man,
that's expensive though, eh? That's a lot of meat.
We'd have to save up a couple of paychecks and...
Yeah. Let's do it though. I'm down.
I'm down.
Well, hold on though. We could... use some pro-lifers for meat.
That's
I've gone too far.
Question number 4. If astrology, and this applies to psychics as well. Question number 4. If astrologers are as good as they claim, why aren't they richer? By making all these predictions.
Well, they would be like oracles of Delphi kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You would...
Same for psychics, right?
Yeah, they don't do, astrology doesn't do lottery numbers.
Well, yeah, why aren't there more psychic lottery winner billionaires,
Yeah.
Same for astrology. If they can work out all their influences and whatever, maybe they can devise a chart to
When we're reading these astrology things, I can't even really decipher what exactly it's saying. It's not really saying anything.
No, that's it.
That's
the idea of a Barnum statement. Did we even define a Barnum statement?
We did not, but the basic principle of a Barnum statement is a statement that can be vague enough to apply to anybody, yet seem personal to the person to which it's addressed.
Yeah.
Essentially. Okay, question number 5. Are all horoscopes done before the discovery of the 2 outermost planets? I'll read that again. Are all horoscopes done before the discovery of the 2 outermost planets incorrect? Because as we may or may not know, Uranus and Neptune were discovered in 1781 and 1846. Right?
Yeah.
So that would have changed the astrological charts and whatnot. So does that invalidate every other horoscope before that, or astrological whatever?
It would be pretty funny to pull out and get this view of the universe that we've never had before, and it is actually spelled out like a language.
Well,
this is what's going to happen today.
That one, I think the response to that from a believer would be that while they were perceiving the effect, they just didn't have the asters to point to as
so they're
cause.
They're moving the goalposts
a little bit, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pluto, which has been demoted, right, from planet status to
dwarf planet,
dwarf planet or whatever.
Didn't they reinstate it?
No.
No. Oh,
No.
Still.
Oh yeah, I thought they did.
No.
I thought it was a planet again.
No. Pluto's not a planet.
Damn you, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
First of all, Eris, which is in the Kuiper Belt, is an aster. Is that a word? An ast, which is it's like a planetoid that is bigger than Pluto.
Yeah,
and it's in our solar system. And astrologers have never pointed to.
Oh yeah, where is this?
To its transits or
movements.
movements.
Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, it's way beyond. Like yeah.
The other thing is that there's other objects closer than Pluto, of bigger size that are never.
Well, like Saturn and Jupiter's moons, for example.
Exactly, like Titan and
Enceladus. Do they not influence what's happening?
These are huge. They would have way more of an influence if we were influenced at all by these planets that are way like.
See, once again, you're saying influence when it doesn't necessarily have to be influence.
No, but this is
comparability.
This is the basis.
See, they want to say that it's only a symbol, but there's a necessary implication in what they're saying.
There's supposed to be a causal connection.
There's a causal relationship. If this happens when this thing is there and only when that's there, then they're saying that there must be some kind of relationship of influence.
Yeah, and some of them will go as far as to point to gravity, which makes absolutely no sense because the inverse law states that the effects of gravity diminish depending on how far you are away from the mass.
Yeah, so that being the case, actually, you're far more influenced by the gravity of the nurse who helps deliver you than you are the planets.
That was the exact example I was going to use.
Okay.
Because the nurse who's delivering the baby has a greater gravitational influence on the child than Mars does, just by virtue of the distance between Mars and Earth and the proximity of the nurse to the baby.
So they explicitly point to things like gravity as a force of influence.
Right. And if there were some other unknown force acting upon individuals and whatever, according to astrology, it would be a massive discovery in the scientific domain because it would be an influence that does not rely on distance. It's independent of distance, is what I'm trying to say, and that would be huge. That would be a monumental discovery.
And if astrology is real, and looking at these charts and then constructing a profile or some kind of a horoscope or just some kind of a reading, right, from doing all of these calculations or actually looking at the astrology and where different planets are and stuff like that. If you want to say that there's something real to that and meaningful to that, then that means that it has a physical reality, and that it is the domain of science to test.
A pattern would be decipherable, right?
It can be detected.
And so if it's real, then you have to be ready to allow science to confirm its reality. Mm-hmm. And when science comes along and uses your own thing, your own models and statements, and
still can't make anything of it,
and they fail to stand up and actually meet the test, then
we're going to call you a poopy head,
it, right?
Poopy heads.
Question number 6. I don't know. Poopy heads. Question 6. I don't really understand this one, so I'll read the associated blurb with it. Shouldn't we condemn astrology as a form of bigotry? So yeah, I did.
Oh yeah, okay. So I've heard the comparison actually that astrology is almost an acceptable kind of stereotyping.
Okay, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not much different from like plain old racism or like saying that Jews are miserly and the Chinese are inscrutable or something.
Or I'm incompatible with my chosen mate because she's an Aries and I'm a filthy Libra or whatever. It's that kind of
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many videos I saw as I'm like looking for information on astrology and stuff where you have people that are just going through the signs, going through the astrological types, right, of people, and they're saying, the 4 signs that I really hate. I hate Tauruses because they're like this. And then they start listing off these kind of unkind characteristics, like, they're stubborn and they're contemptuous and arrogant and and that defines them. So any person that they meet that happens to be born in May or whatever, then they will be primed, right, with that kind of profile to begin with, and then they're doing their whole unconscious biases and heuristics, right, that are just getting them to either confirm their bias or.
So you can make the argument that it can be seen as a form of bigotry. It's more or less the equivalent of saying, well, I'm not going to date a Jew because they're cheap, and I'm not going to date a black person because they have big dicks, which might be a positive, but whatever. Any number of these types of comparisons, right? You're rejecting somebody based on a list of stereotypes that astrology says fits this person who's born under such and such a sign. So, yeah. Can be seen as a, I guess, form of bigotry.
Sanctioned stereotyping.
Sanctioned, yeah. Question 7. Why do different schools of astrology disagree so strongly with each other? So if this were some kind of united field...
Yeah, you've got like Western and then, tropical...
or Vedic astrology versus Western astrology, or Chinese astrology.
It'd be hilarious if one of them was just completely right and the other one is just wrong.
Yeah, so, like if there were any legitimacy behind this, then you'd think there would be some kind of consensus among the different schools of astrology. But, they diverge so widely from one another that, it's incongruent. And it just seems really weird.
Which is exactly the same as like what has been said about any religious ideology.
Yeah, like
right. Everybody thinks that their religious ideology is the right one. You know, so
like with Christianity, how many different sects?
Everybody's an atheist to all the other religions.
Right.
Atheists are just atheistic about one more religion than every other person.
Yeah. I think Ricky Gervais came up with that.
Oh, is that what it was?
It might have been, yeah. I've seen the quote attributed to him before, but yeah. So that's that one. Where are we?
Gemini.
Question 8. If the astrological influence is carried by a known force, why do the planets dominate? So if the effects of astrology can be attributed to gravity, for example, tidal forces or magnetism.
Yeah.
Magnetism.
They actually conflate magnetism and gravity a lot.
Even a beginning physics student can make the calculations necessary to see what really affects a newborn baby. And this is where they get into that example of, the influence of Mars versus the nurse who's delivering the baby. So yeah. Let's move on. Question 9. If astrological influence is carried by an unknown force, why is it independent of distance?
Yeah. This is where Chopraisms would come in, and they would appeal to quantum mechanics.
Yeah, no, I can see how
spooky action at a distance.
Right, oh god. Yeah, no, I can see.
I can see the
Chopra
hate is coming out, guys. The Chopra hate is coming.
It's been a while since we dissed on Chopra. I think
fuck you, Chopra. If you want to call in and sponsor the show,
we will gladly take your money and then slag you again later. Okay, question 10. If astrological influences don't depend on distance, why is there no astrology of stars, galaxies, and quasars? So yeah, what, like...
Yeah,
Why
right.
aren't we influenced by Andromeda or...
Well, that's like what we were saying earlier. Why aren't we influenced by asteroids in the asteroid belt?
which are a lot closer than, you know, the constellations we're basing all this shit on. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So did you guys notice or take note of who, like, what's the origins of astrology? Like, who would have been the first?
One of the earliest known systems is the ancient Babylonians. But it's not the oldest necessarily, but it's one of the earliest forms of, you know, syncretized or an actual system of astrology.
Some have traced it to Egypt, Ptolemaic Egypt,
Right,
Hellenistic influences.
Hellenistic influence, and then you've also got the Vedic, which would be, I guess, more like India and
and then the Chinese astrology, which is, you know, I think it definitely predates Western astrology. I don't have no idea by how much, because I didn't bother with the history.
Yeah,
of
we haven't talked about Chinese astrology at all.
Yeah,
I'm a snake, by the way.
I'm a monkey.
You're a monkey?
That's horribly
that
racist.
Figures.
Oh,
But don't.
you shifty snake bastard!
I have no idea what I am.
Yeah.
I can say the same in general about myself. I have no idea what I am.
But don't.
Oh, yeah. So it's just, I don't know why people still believe in it. It's just it's well, I guess we can make the same argument about why do people still believe in religion or spirituality and this and that. It falls into the same camp. Why do people still believe in faith healing?
Yeah, I think it appeals to people's egos, though.
In what way?
Because I think it's something that allows people to make some kind of claim of competence without actually needing to be competent.
Are you talking on the part of the astrologer?
Yeah,
astrologer. I mean,
yeah.
Can you give us an example?
So, not even just on the part of the astrologer. If you believe in astrology and then you kind of internalize these ideas of star signs or whatever, and when you meet someone, you go, "Oh, what's your sign?" and then you're like, oh, "Okay, I can make some determinations about the people that I meet based on what I know about when they were born or something like that," like the stereotyping, right? You're fooling yourself into thinking that you've got some kind of intuition, you've got some kind of
like an insight that other people don't
insight.
have.
Oh, so it's like it's more
that should be useful in the world
right.
you, but you absolutely don't.
Right. It's more stupid to pile on top of your stupid to make your stupid feel good about being stupid.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Bang on. Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. It might give some people some form of, I don't know if it's necessarily comfort that they might find in this type of thing, or if it's some kind of other rewarding self-fulfillment kind of deal. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that one. Yeah.
I mean that's not. It's not like it's exclusive to believers in astrology or to religious people that things that appeal to your ego are more easily accepted, right? Like that's true for every single human being.
Right.
Everybody has an ego.
Yes. And people that want to pile stupid on top of their stupid will find something stupid to put on top of their stupid.
Yeah.
To feel smart.
Yeah.
About their stupid.
Exactly.
So, just because of how prevalent it is within society, I don't see astrology or horoscopes or any of that going away anytime soon.
Well, as a society, we tend to embrace all these fun things and see them as fun things and distractions from the cruelties and sufferings of the world and stuff like that. Like they seem almost innocent in comparison, you know.
Yeah.
That we can grab them and have a little
fun.
with them.
On the
It's almost like
continuum
playing cards.
on the continuum of things that should be gotten rid of, I'd place astrology pretty low.
Yeah.
On that continuum,
sure.
It's not the most pressing thing that we need to address, but it's still superstitious.
People aren't
garbage.
flying planes into buildings over astrology yet.
Yet.
Yet. Keyword
Give it
yet.
another couple thousand years.
Jeez. Hopefully not. That would be ridiculous.
Oh god, humanity's not going to last another couple thousand years.
Yeah. Either the robots rise up to destroy us all, or
I've
we
heard
nuke
some
ourselves.
fairly credible estimates that give a deadline to humanity's longevity at like within the next 500.
Stephen Hawking put it within the next 500 years, if not less than that. I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, like it was one of the last things that he put out before he died. But yeah, so I don't place it very high on the scale of things that need to be addressed head on. I think it's more important to address things like religion and other really detrimental and harmful superstitions before we address the issue of astrology.
I guess only because they're not doing much with it.
Right.
They're not doing that much damage with it, sort of thing. So it'd be, what you're saying now is just based on the amount of damage that we can see stemming from astrology, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people are getting fleeced out of their money, which is definitely a bad thing, but...
What would they have done with that money otherwise? We don't know. May have been even worse.
Maybe gone to a faith healer or whatever, or invested in people who want to fly planes into buildings. Who knows? That wasn't as funny as I thought it would be. Now you laugh? Really? Okay.
It's funny when things are funny.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're just trying to buy more time here, but final thoughts on the issue of astrology?
Well, it seems like it's an old habit. Old habits die hard kind of thing. It's just some remnant of the past belief.
Yeah.
It's up there with touching the shape of our head and trying to decipher
chronology.
Chronology.
Or phrenology.
Phrenology.
Phrenology. Yeah.
But as soon as you take it more seriously than that, and that you pretend to defend it as some kind of legitimate ontology or something, like a legitimate kind of factual aspect of the universe that is useful, then you're delusional. And I don't know, maybe don't.
maybe don't do that.
Maybe
don't be crazy.
Maybe you shouldn't believe in that. Is that your final?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn it! Lasted like 30 seconds, man. I'm trying to buy another 10 minutes.
We can make it a short
But I mean,
one.
in general, belief is just dangerous. Like it often is, right?
Well,
Belief.
that's the only sense in which I say it's not benign, entirely benign.
Sure. Yeah.
Because of that more broad issue of just
Blind
unjustified belief is
Yeah.
just not good.
It's not wise.
Yeah, any kind of belief in things for which there is no demonstrable evidence within reality is probably dangerous. I'll make this my final thought. That includes things like astrology, because as the multiple studies have demonstrated, astrology is nothing but pseudoscience and should be treated as such. And unfortunately, there are still people who will give over ridiculous sums of money to astrologers and people who come up with their birth charts and whatever, because they're either willfully ignorant or just unfortunately credulous, or any number of different reasons for it. But yeah, unjustified belief is delusional.
At the same time, though, continue your exploring of astrology, and if you do come up with any patterns that you know what I mean,
right.
Go ahead and present them. I mean,
Yeah, because that's gonna fucking revolutionize physics forever.
Right.
If you can actually demonstrate
Sure.
this bullshit.
Yeah, if there's anyone who's really serious in their belief about astrology and is willing to put in the rigorous testing necessary for it,
Why not actually apply for the James Randi challenge, and you'll actually get some dough out of it?
because they stopped doing that a couple of years ago.
Did they
What's
really?
the
They
James
stopped
Randi,
offering.
what is-
He offered $1 million to anyone who can demonstrate in laboratory conditions psychic powers or anything supernatural.
Oh yeah.
No one has been able to satisfy the criteria.
Yeah.
So the $1 million just never happened. It was never given out. Nobody ever won it because no one could do it.
But that was out there for decades.
It was out there for a very long time.
I didn't know that they stopped.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
It's pretty recent.
I'm sure there's
But yeah,
some-
like if there's anyone who can actually demonstrate any kind of validity behind astrology by putting together a rigorous scientific test that flies in the face of all the other ones that have been done and can come up with a recognizable pattern, go claim your Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
This has been Critical Junction episode 43. I'm Mark.
I'm still Luke.
And I'm Jill.
As always, thanks for listening, and until next time, keep thinking critically.